The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio. From hot dogs to cool kitties, this is Darkside of the Pooch.
Dr. Rab, what you got? Well, that's good. You must be getting really close to your mic because every time you do, it cuts out. It's like.
Let me try it again. You mean
do it one more time.
Away?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, hold it. Yeah, hold it far away. Go ahead. Oh, that was good. That was good. That's some reverb on it, dude. That almost sounded like a wolf or something like that. That was awesome. Dr. Rab Stewart.
I got to get further away from the mic when I do it.
There you go. Dr. Rab Stewart, Rossbridge Animal Hospital. You know him right here in Birmingham in the Rossbridge area and, of course, all over the United States. We got Mutt Mail coming up. We got some people from Montana that are checking into the show, so we'll get to their emails coming up here. Go to TonyCurryRadio.net, TonyCurryRadio.net. Not only can you listen to Darkside of the Pooch and all the past episodes through TonyCurryRadio.net, you can also do that through Spotify, which is absolutely free, and, of course, hear the show live every Monday at noon and 8 right here on Tony Curry Radio. So we're all over the place. And, of course, check them out on Facebook, the Rossbridge Animal Hospital, and also at Rossbridge Vet on Twitter. He is Dr. Rab Stewart. This is brought to you by the way, our good friends at Ed's Pet World. They've been in business for over 50 years. They're down there in Homewood, exotic pets. They're not only going to get you the exotic pets, chinchillas, ferrets, rabbits, bearded dragons, you name it. They got tons of fish down there, but they're also going to help you care for that animal so it can live the longest life possible. And, of course, Seth is a big toy monger. He's all over the United States. He's got back from Las Vegas. He goes out and does all kinds of vintage and collectible toys, Star Wars stuff and everything else. In the box, if you find some stuff in your house, they buy, sell, and trade. Check out Ed's Pet World. Dr. Rab, what is going on, man? How are you?
I've got to use the power of the show for 1 second because somebody demolished my mailbox at my house. So I'm using the power of the Tony Curry Radio Network. And if anyone is a good brick mason, call my office at 205-208-0301. My mailbox needs surgery. It is on life support.
You know, the best guys for that, man, are those old dudes that used to be bricklayers. Like, they'll do it for like $100, $150. Their wives will want them to get out of the house. If you go with one of these young guys, it's going to cost you twice that. But if you can find an old bricklayer that just likes to do that kind of work, that's the way to go, man.
Well, see, the person, and I don't know how this happened because it was in the middle of the night, and I don't ask questions. But whoever did it, I never saw him, I never met him, but the police were somehow involved some way or another. And so we're going to be able, the guy is, insurance and all that stuff. So I'm very thankful for that.
The police were involved?
Yeah. I mean, they rang my doorbell at just after midnight.
Wow.
And I opened the door and,
is that your business or your home?
No, it's in my home.
I got you.
Yeah. And so I went outside and they told me what happened. They were like, hey, we got all the information, so you don't have to worry about it. So, man, I don't, fortunately we'll be able to get it taken care of.
They didn't hit it on purpose, did they?
No.
Yeah.
No. I mean, the story is that the guy was, avoiding of an animal in the road, and our mailbox got in the way of that. I had
just like a regular pole, and I was the only house on my entire neighborhood in Heatherwood that had a mailbox that was on a pole. So it looked really cheap. So I had one of these old guys come out and build me. Actually, I built the first one by myself because I like to try new things. And then my next door neighbor right across the street, 3 hours after I had it up, backed over it. Yeah. And then I hired a guy to do it. So, again, 208-0301, 208-0301 for all your pet needs and, or, if you're a bricklayer and you want to make a mailbox for Dr. Rab Stewart. All right. So it's been stinking hot. By the time this thing airs, we're breaking records down here in the South. Texas is up over 100 degrees. And of course, whenever comes that heat, comes our big pet care. I know one of the big issues is obviously we love to take our animals for rides in cars. I like to do it with mine. Give me some tips. Give me some safety features about when's it too hot. What do you need to do if you do take your animal for a ride? I know a lot of people have keyless entry, so you can leave your car running and have it locked if you're going to go inside a store. How long are you allowed to leave an animal in a car before it gets too hot? I know even dropping the windows and makes it too warm. Give us some poop on that, will you?
Yeah, if I can't really tell you a number as far as a degree,
Yeah.
if it gets to this degree, then you should not leave your dog in the car with the windows up.
And I will say this, and I saw this on the Weather Channel. Typically, within 5 minutes, it is 10 degrees warmer than the outside temperature. And then within 10 minutes, it's normally somewhere between 16 and 20 degrees warmer in your car. That is, of course, with the windows up. So just keep that in mind. When it's 75, it's pushing 95 inside your car within 10 minutes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So my own personal rule of thumb is if I'm in the car and I turn it off and it's too hot for me, either with the windows up or the windows down, then it's too hot for my dog. And I've gotten to where I don't take my dog really anywhere unless it's winter.
Okay.
If it's wintertime, I know I don't have to worry about it, and I can leave my windows up for a little while and he will be fine in the car. But I don't like to leave my car running, and I don't like to leave the windows down because you never know who's out there. You could come back with no car and no dog. So I don't make a habit of it unless it's wintertime. I'm talking December to February.
Yeah. Typically, I like to think of my animals as my kids. And I think to myself, would I leave my 3 or 4 year old in the backseat of the car in this particular heat? Then don't leave your animal there. I mean, I don't, and I thank goodness, knock on wood, I don't have a 3 or 4 year old, and I'm not planning on having another, but that's but really, and I think this is a good thing. But whenever I do take even if I'm going up to the gas station, and the windows are down a little bit, I do think twice about even going inside the store to grab a slushie or something because I'm afraid someone's going to call the cops on me. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. I remember it's probably been 2 or 3 years ago. And there was a really big story about a lady in a local Walmart that left her dogs in the car. It was a huge story. I think somebody busted her windows out or something.
Sure did.
I think we even talked about it. So yeah, I mean, it is that time of year where it's very dangerous.
And legally, I believe you have the right to break someone's window if you believe that their animal is in some type of danger. And you can normally tell. I mean, listen, if the windows aren't cracked at all and it's 80 degrees outside, there's an issue. I don't care where they're at. Just look around the parking lot. If obviously it would take them a good 5 to 6 minutes to get back to the car, regardless of what. We've had people go into casinos, strip clubs, at nighttime and leave their animals out there. So great stuff and great information there about it being too hot. That's going to take us on. I got one other story I want to get to, but let's do a piece of Mutt Mail here real quick from Tina in Newport, Kentucky, where Jerry Springer used to be, of course, the mayor of Newport, Kentucky, until he actually got together with a prostitute. Can dogs get sunburned feet? I always think about that. I know a lot of people like to walk their dogs. They don't always have grass in order to walk on. But what happens to the pads of our little doggy's feet when it gets a little warm?
We see this time of year. I've already seen one case of it.
Wow.
And it's dogs that are walking on hot concrete. They'll get blisters on their paw pads.
Oh.
And the other thing that you'll see is if the paw pads get wet, if your dog likes to play in, either natural water or a pool, whatever, they run around in that water and their paw pads get soft, and then they run around on hot concrete, and it just causes the paw pads to just peel right off.
Oh.
And it's effectively, a blister. If you walk around with no socks on or you're breaking a new pair of shoes and you get one of those kind of friction rubs, you get a blister. That's basically what it's like. Wow. And you would swear when it happens to your dog that it's broken a leg, because they're limping really bad. They're licking on their pads a lot, but fortunately they heal really fast. Usually sometimes you have to bandage the feet for a couple of days and put them on something for inflammation. Sometimes they can get infected, and so you put them on an antibiotic as well. But this is the time of year that we see that stuff because the dogs, it's hot. So everybody's going to the lake or they're going to the river or they're letting the dog jump in the pool. And then the dog jumps out and it either runs on the rocks or runs on the concrete, and then it gets these injuries.
What's the best way to gauge whether it's too hot? If it's too hot for your feet, it's too hot for your dogs?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good rule of thumb. I mean, dogs are going to be a little bit, more resilient because the pads on their feet are so much thicker and stronger. But I mean, it's a good rule of thumb that because again, I mean, it's not like you can take the temperature of the pavement or the rock or whatever and say, okay, we've reached that threshold. So always apply it to myself. If it's too hot for your feet, it's probably going to be getting close to being too hot for your dog's feet.
There you have it, right there from Dr. Rab Stewart, brought to you by, of course, Ed's Pet World. 50 years in the business down there in beautiful Homewood. Check out Seth, his entire crew. Ed's Pet World does a wonderful job. And, of course, you can find Rossbridge Animal Hospital on Facebook, Rossbridge Animal Hospital, or at Rossbridge Vet on Twitter, 208-0301, 208-0301. 205 is the area code outside. A lot of our Mutt Mail is from outside of this area as well. Let's do one more before I want to get to this other story here. Stacy in Birmingham says, what's up with dogs and vacuum cleaners? Man, I've got a broom, and Rainer, who's already a little skittish, he's my Australian Shepherd. The minute he hears me take that broom off the hook in the laundry room, he is out the door. And I get him because he's an Australian Shepherd. He's a little skittish. But what's up with dogs and vacuum cleaners? Why they get so excited? Why do they hate them so much?
It's the noise. Dogs, they just don't like those kind of loud noises. A lot of dogs don't like fireworks. A lot of dogs don't like garbage trucks or construction going on. The noise just drives them crazy. They're going to be afraid of it. I had a dog, a Weimaraner, and she was terrified of the vacuum. Now, she would not bark at it. She would not try to eat it. But as soon as you fired that thing up, she was on the other side of the house as quick as she could get there. And they don't like the noise. And so you get, when you have a dog that's afraid of something, you either have my kind of dog that, is just going to bolt because they have an aversion, or you have a dog that when they get, it's the old fight or flight thing.
Yeah.
Some dogs fight. That's my dog. And Stacy's dog might fight because they're afraid of something. They see that it's a threat either to them or maybe even to you. I mean, there's some dogs that might think the owners are getting in a fight with a vacuum because they don't know what a vacuum is.
Yeah.
And so they're going to go after that thing. So it's a fear. It's fear.
Okay. This past weekend in Bedford, Texas, Guinness Book of World Records showed up in Bedford to check out Zeus, the Great Dane, to see if it's the tallest dog in history. This dog measured 3 feet, 5.18 inches from the back. Put your hand up and see how tall that bad boy is.
3 feet.
Almost 3.5 feet. When I first saw it, I thought that's not very high. But when you think about it from the back up, that dog could get in the 4-foot section of a swimming pool and still have its head above water to kind of put it in. And guess how much food it eats. Take a guess how much food it eats in the morning and night.
It eats 8 cups of food at each feeding.
You are super close. It does 6. Very good. Okay. It does 6 cups of food in the morning and 6 cups at night, and I bet you it leaves some really big gifts in the backyard. We had a question here from Tina, another Tina. She wanted to know what's the biggest dog that you've ever cared for, and what's the smallest dog you've ever cared for at Rossbridge Animal Hospital?
The biggest dog, we had a Mastiff that in its heyday, it was 250 pounds.
Wow.
As it got older, it lost weight because, they lose, just like us, they lose muscle mass. Mm-hmm. And so this dog lost some weight. That was a beautiful dog. I mean, huge dog. It developed some joint problems. And so get this, when these people brought the dog in, they had to rent a trailer to bring it to us.
Really?
Yeah, because they couldn't get it in the car because number one, it was so big, and number two, as it got older, it really wouldn't give them any help. They could lay all their seats back, but it was hard to get the dog. You could not at all get the dog like through an actual door on the side. You couldn't get it through the back door, and then the back end, it got to be so high, the dog couldn't get in there anymore. And the dog was still super heavy. So they had to rent a trailer to bring it to us.
That is hilarious.
And then, the smallest dogs, small breed puppies, if we're going to go like smallest adult dog that we've, ever treated, is probably going to be in the 2 to 3 pound range.
Yeah.
But some of these puppies, the first time we see them, I mean, they're less than a pound.
Yeah.
But adult dogs, 2 or 3 pounds, probably the smallest we've ever seen.
That is pretty incredible there. Dr. Rab Stewart, of course, the Rossbridge Animal Hospital. We do Darkside the Pooch every Monday. It runs at noon and 8, the brand new episode. So if you want to be one of the first people to hear these, you can listen at noon and 8 on Tony Curry Radio. Go to Spotify, Tony Curry Radio, Curry with a K. Search Darkside the Pooch, or listen to any of our hundreds of different shows. We do Blues Almighty. We have a Damon Johnson show. We have Mission Minded. We have Adaptogen, Darkside the Pooch, the hip hop show, the whole 9 yards. A Win in Rome with Stuart Rome's a great show. A lot of them have classic rock. You know what? I was thinking about this, and I know James Michael Keats, who has a question for you in a second, my director of programming, probably would not like another musically elemented show because he has to put them together. But we could do a show about, we could play some Black Dog, Giving the Dog a Bone. We could do some music in one of your shows,
I would love that because I'm, me, like music is like, it's my life.
There you go. All right, James wants to ask you a question. You're hot there, James. Go ahead with Dr. Rab Stewart here on Darkside the Pooch on Tony Curry Radio. What do you got?
All right, Dr. Rab. So I'm trying to get an Australian Shepherd, right? We talked about that last week. I tried to slip in that question. So things have progressed. We have one on the waiting list.
Nice.
We have been approved. We're approved twice, which is pretty cool. So you can take that knowledge and add that to your answer if you want. But since we're going to get an Australian Shepherd, I imagine the best way to go about this is we're on a waiting list is we go and we see the litter and then we get to see which one we like, I guess, which one is maybe giving us some foolage or something like that. We like their way. And I suppose a little bit deeper than that would be, does it matter if I'm looking at a blue merle or a red merle? These different variations of Australian Shepherds. Should I be worried about any sort of predispositions for medical stuff? What should I look out for with the breed in general? I guess I'm just terrified, but I'm also excited to have a puppy.
Baby, it's great.
This is a really good question. The most important thing that I think that you can do when you're looking for a dog, is talk to the breeder about the parents and see if you can meet the parents. If the parents are healthy, then there's a good chance the dogs are going to be healthy. If the parents have chronic problems, either with GI issues or skin problems, you'd be able to, if they're like most skin problems, you might even be able to notice that on the parents. Talk to the breeders about the age of the parents. You don't want their breeding dogs to be super old. There's a range for sure, but 2 to 4 years old is probably a good window. So, first do your homework on the parents and then see if they'll give you any references on people that have gotten other puppies from these parents before. And I would try to get people, I know we're talking about the breeding window as 2 to 4 years maybe, but again, they can be younger or older. We're just kind of throwing out a good number, but talk to somebody that's maybe had that dog for a couple of years, if possible, had a puppy from these parents. Because once a dog gets to be 2 or 3 years old, most of its chronic conditions that you're going to have to live with for their whole life have already come about. If they're going to have skin problems, they're already there. If they're going to have GI problems, they're already there. Same thing with joint problems that, all dogs eventually will have wear and tear on their joints, but some dogs are born with the predisposition to have it. So, so the parents are important. References are important. Talking to the breeder about, hey, what's your passion? What's your motivation for doing this? That's good. And as far as breed things to look out for, herding dogs, they're one of a few breeds that can have a mutation in their genes. It's the MDR1 mutation. And it makes them really sensitive to a lot of medications, whether it's monthly preventatives for heartworms or intestinal parasites. There are some anesthetic drugs, and the herding breeds are higher for that mutation. So if they do have the mutation, it's not the end of the world. They can live totally normal lives. But you're just going to want to know if they have that. And so that way, they can avoid medications that might cause them a problem because of that gene mutation that they struggle with having reactions to medications.
That's a great answer. You got a follow up? You good?
No, I don't think so. I think this is, I may have questions next week and the week after that, but I think one step at a time. This is an adventure, and I'm down to go on it. Allie and I are both super stoked about adding the puppy to the family.
Congratulations.
So we just want to do it right.
There you go. It's interesting too. We talked about this last week. There was some type of study about dogs and their temperament and their smartness, and it doesn't matter whether you get a pure breed or a mutt. They could all be taught to do whatever you want them to do. But it does seem, and I've got an Australian Shepherd. I really firmly believe this is the smartest dog that I think I've ever had, and I've probably had 20 dogs. And maybe not so much the smartest dog, but it catches on super quick. And I'll use an example. One of the reasons we adopted this dog was because it wouldn't stop chasing the cat at its previous owners, and they didn't want him to kill this cat. I have a cat, and when I tell Rainer, no cat, he will not touch the cat. Now, if I don't tell him no cat, he'll chase it. But when we go outside the door, whenever I open the door, he thinks we're going for a ride. He'll run straight to the car, and he'll walk right past the cat. But as long as I let him know, he will not chase the cat. Are there different breeds? And it seems like worker dogs, service dogs, like Australian Shepherds or herding dogs, they do seem to be a little smarter, don't they?
Yeah, I think they are. I mean, I think that there are some breeds that are more trained. I think all breeds can be trained, but some breeds are more trainable than others.
Like men, right? Like men in a marriage. You just have to want to learn.
all men can be trained, but some are more easily trained than others. I'm not sure which category I fall in. We'd have to get my wife on here and ask her.
So I have gone through pure breeders. I've been to mobile home parks to get a dog. I've found them on the sides of the road. I've done mutts. Talk about inbreeding a little bit. I know that and listen, I think there's a lot of great breeders out there. And again, do your homework. If you're going to spend $500, $600, $700 on a dog, do your homework. And if it doesn't seem right, you don't like the environment, the atmosphere, even the street you have to go down to get this dog, keep that in mind. But what happens when breeders inbreed their dogs? What happens there?
They're just not healthy. I mean, you can see a lot of, either external or internal abnormalities from that. And there are some breeds that just have abnormalities no matter what, because it's in the breed. So, for example, Chihuahuas, they have something it's almost standard for the breed. And they have these growth plates in their head that don't close all the way a lot of times. So it's called an open fontanelle. It just never closes, and that can lead to hydrocephalus, which is fluid around the brain. So there are some things where you can do all the research that you want, but just be sure that you know what the potential abnormalities are for that breed. And even the best breeders in the world of those dogs are going to have those problems because they're just a part of the breed.
Yeah.
But there are things like that are going to happen if they're not, you're going to see mutations. You're going to see unhealthy puppies. And, the thing about it is you probably you'll probably never know, unless you really do your homework. And, most people, they may not, they may not look at the genealogy of the parents and that sort of thing, because it's kind of confusing. And honestly, if somebody wanted to fudge it, I mean, they could easily do it.
Sure.
So, and that's why I tell people the most important thing that you can do when you're looking for a puppy is to talk to references, people that have gotten the dogs from that breeder before.
And how important is it paperwork wise? I know I've gotten some dogs that are pure breeds. I just trust that it's because I want a pure breed. I don't know totally if it's a pure breed. It looks like that particular animal, but when you ask for papers, they should have those, correct?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they should have the appropriate documentation from the AKC. Some dogs will be AKC registered, and some dogs will be CKC. That's Canadian. I'm not a breedist, like if the dog that I have right now is just a mixed breed dog that we just got, I mean, we we have a family member that helps a lot with the rescue, and they happened upon this dog. And at the time, he was our third dog, in the house. But we took him. And at that same time, we had 2 purebreds, and I mentioned one of them, the Weimaraner, and then the other one we had was a 4-pound Yorkie that could fit in your front pocket, this 12-year-old mixed breed dog that we have, he's had no problems at all. And we don't know what his family history is. We don't know. So, people don't have to get so hung up on that, but, you do want to find a reputable breeder, if you're going to go that route.
You're listening to Darkside the Pooch. It is live on Tony Curry Radio. Download the Tony Curry Radio app through Android, Apple, and of course you can listen to it noon and 8 every Monday, and go to Spotify and listen to all of our previous episodes if you're liking what you're hearing, and why wouldn't you? Check out Dr. Rab and Darkside the Pooch on Spotify at Tony Curry Radio. Also go to TonyCurryRadio.net, and you can leave our emails. We get into some Mutt Mail. One final thought on Jamie and his situation with his Australian Shepherd. I have gotten the opportunity to have the pick of the litter normally, and I'm a compassionate kind of guy, and I always pick the biggest pup, the one that's facing its little snoot into the corner of the box. It doesn't seem to be very sociable, and I feel sorry for the animal, and I know it's probably going to be the last one picked, probably because I was always the last one picked in gym class. What's the differences between picking one that perhaps is very, very playful and joyful, and one that's just kind of quiet and it's got its snoot in the corner of the box? And in most cases, it seems like it's the bigger dog. Why is that? I'm
not really sure. Why a big one would be kind of off by itself. I would think that the biggest one would probably still be attached to the teat because there's a reason that it's big. Mm-hmm. But when picking a dog, sometimes there is something to be said for getting to know the litter if possible. But a lot of breeders will say, look, we've got a litter of 8 and we've got 8 people that want these dogs. 7 of them are already taken. We only have 1 left. And if you want this dog from this litter, this is your chance. Otherwise we'll see you in a year or longer, whatever. So sometimes you don't have the luxury, but if you do, and you can meet all the dogs, I think you can get a good idea of their personality. If you have one that is kind of laid back, you can hold it, you can turn it over on its back. You can, look in its mouth and it doesn't really put up a whole lot of fight. Then you're probably going to have a pretty laid back dog. If you have one that's, you can't lay on its back, it keeps trying to roll back over.
And explain to people, you've talked about this, explain to people again why you want to see if an animal can lay on its back.
A lot of times that will just show you if they understand that you're dominant.
Yes.
If you can take a puppy and hold it in your hand, lay it on its back, and it lays there, obviously we want to be sure that it's not sick, and it's not rolling over because it has no energy. But if they'll understand that you're dominant and not try to fight you, odds are that's going to be a good submissive dog down the road. Now it's not foolproof. So, there's things that, are not, that aren't tried and true all the time, but that's one thing that you can look for. So, but if you want a wild and crazy dog and you want one that's going to just, run around the house, run around the yard, and maybe you don't want a dog that's submissive. Maybe you want a dog that wants to be in control and is an alpha and is going to protect you and protect your house and your family, then maybe you don't want that dog that's off by itself and is easily, subdued.
There you go. Dr. Rab Stewart, Darkside the Pooch, every Monday right here, and also on Spotify, brought to you by Ed's Pet World, 50 years in the business down there in beautiful Homewood. Check it out. Our final question here, Jeff from Guilford, Indiana, wants to know, should my dog wear a seatbelt in the car? His vet said normally, and he saw something, 52% of all owners of pets actually put seatbelts on their animals in the car. Good idea or bad idea?
We've seen a good bit of them, we had one come in just last week that we went out to the car to see it because it had an upper respiratory problem, and we try to see those dogs outside so they don't come inside. If they need to come inside, we bring them in. But so we went out to the car to see this dog, and it was in a seatbelt. And I've never used a seatbelt on my own dog, but they're out there, and I would say if you're gonna use them, read the reviews, read to see if they've done, any type of certification, which I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure what it would have been, but I would look for something that tells me that this has been tested and it is safe, because there are something, there are some things. So you look back at some of these pictures of kids, like I'm talking about from like the 40s, of seatbelts and car seats. I saw one the other day. They had the kid raised up in the front seat. Like the way that this thing worked is like they were sitting eye level, like where an adult would be. They had a little strap on them. And I mean, they're sitting in the front seat, and that was something that was standard, like 80 years ago. Like that's what everybody did.
Did you ever, well, again, it wasn't that long ago, because I remember back in the 60s and 70s, when I was a baby, my mom used to put me back on the, behind the back seat up against the window.
Yeah.
we had a station wagon, which was crazy because you're sitting in the wrong direction, but seatbelts just weren't that important back then. So that's good. Hey, another killer show. Yeah, go ahead.
Be sure it's tested. Yeah, just look into it.
Ed's Pet World. Their number is 879-1331, 879-1331. Geckos, chameleons, snakes. I got a ball python there. It's awesome. His name's Repairman Terrence. He's wonderful. Bearded dragons, birds, parakeets. They got talking parrots. They have rabbits, chinchillas, ferrets. They do it all. They've been in business since 1974, almost 50 years. And on top of that, they have figures, pops, various items, specialty watches, collectibles, Star Wars stuff. Seth has got a great little toy thing going down there too, probably as much so as the animal thing. Check it out. And of course, if you lived here in Birmingham, you know all about Ed's Pet World. The kids absolutely love the place. Check it out. If you find some cool stuff in your attic, make sure you check it out, because they buy, sell, and trade at Ed's Pet World. Proud sponsor, Darkside of Pooch. Until next week, my friend, wonderful work, and I can't wait to talk to you next Monday.
See you next time.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.